Hello, I promised I would go over this new kind of tweak or new way to do the bunny hop. So I'm going to show you the comparison between the old way I do bunny hops and the new way I do bunny hops. And I'll still have a purpose for the old way of doing bunny hops, and that'll be more like if I'm coming out of a manual or something like that. But moving forward, I'm going to do this new technique, and it's very subtle, so I will have to show you with a little slider and in slow motion. So let's talk about that. It's very subtle.
There we go. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah. That was so fun. Wow. Tree. Yes. You get to see Biff number 2.
Hello, welcome to my channel. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the details of this bunny hop method. And I saw this video on another YouTube channel where they talked about this and kind of the way we think about the bunny hop. And a lot of us kind of went down this path, but now this guy has kind of changed that way of thinking. And so I'll link that video down in the comments so you can watch that video, and maybe they have a better way of describing it for you. But I'm going to try to get into the details on my channel here using slow motion. So really the bigger difference is I've always like pulled back. So I've always like threw my butt over the rear tire and got the front wheel up as high as I could go. So it was mostly front wheel focus. And if you go back to almost a year ago where I was doing some how-tos, that was what I would teach is get that front wheel up, get your weight back, and then from there, spring out, push your arms forward and get that back wheel to pop up. Fine, it works, great, but it's just a lot to think about, and there's a lot that can go wrong, and so sometimes my consistency's off because I'll pull and I'll start to get to that like balance point sometimes, especially if I'm trying to get really high, and then I'll get a little freaked out and that'll mess up my bunny hop and things like that. And I've had that happen a few times, especially on BMX bikes where the rear end is shorter. This new technique, it doesn't matter how short the rear end is I never feel like I'm gonna fall backwards or anything trying to go high, because the new technique, I'm trying to go straight up with my body rather than do this pull back and then lunge up. So I will talk a little bit about this. It's pretty cool because it's kind of changed how I've thought about the bunny hop for years. And yeah, let's get to like describing the nitty-gritty detail here. Okay, here we go. We're going to talk about this new technique. I saw this on this other YouTube channel called The Joy of Bike, and I'm going to link that video in the description, and you need to go watch it. They really explain this a lot better than I do, but it's really cool, this change. So I'm going to go over kind of how I used the bunny hop and how I'm bunny hopping moving forward. Here's how I used the bunny hop and how I would teach bunny hopping too. If you go look at the couple of videos I did last year, they teach this technique. So what I do here is, as I'm going into it, I'm centered over the bike, and then I crouch, and here's where I thrust back. See how my hips are going back, and I'm thrusting back over the back wheel, and you'll start to see that I'm over the rear axle, and at this point I'm actually behind the rear axle. So what I'm doing is I'm really pulling up the front end and throwing my weight back, rocking back as you might want to call it, and then I thrust up and pull the bike up. So this part right here, boom, where I thrust my weight back is where I'm making the change. So I come up, I come down. Notice I land on my front wheel here, and I'll explain why in just a second once we talk about the next technique. So we'll go forward, and here's the new technique. Is you'll notice as I come into this, I'm going to crouch, but I'm going to go straight down. My hips, ignore where my head is. Look more at my legs and my hips. It's going straight down. And then as I come up, I thrust straight up. Boom, right here. Straight up into the air. I'm not coming from the rear axle. At no point am I over or behind the rear axle here. And then I come up, level off the bike, come down. Notice that I don't land on the front wheel here. So here's this kind of interesting thing that I've learned is in this technique, I rock my body back, then I rock my body forward. Thus I have like this momentum going towards the front of the bike, so it's much harder for me to keep the bike level as I'm coming down and I'm landing front wheel. So the only way that I can prevent the front wheel from landing here is by really pulling hard with my arms to keep the front wheel up, and then maybe even pushing down with my legs faster to get the back wheel to come down. But with this technique, notice I'm not going way back and then thrusting forward. I'm going straight up. And so the bike just comes straight up and then it just falls straight back down. So now at this point right here, as it's coming down, I have control over the bike. I can push my arms down and make the nose dive, or I can push my legs down and land rear wheel first, whatever I need to do. This isn't a high enough air for me to feel like I need to land rear wheel first, but if I was dropping off of something, I'd want to land rear wheel first if it was coming up from a higher air. So that's the big change right there, is going straight up, boom, and then sucking the bike up and then coming through. What they talk about in that video, and this is why I want you to go watch it, is they talk about this row and anti-row. So rolling is you pulling back, and you're pulling back really hard. If you're thinking of being in a rowboat and you're pushing the paddles into the water to thrust your boat forward. So here is the row part where you're just pulling back really hard. And then the anti-row part is you're pushing forward. Now you're taking the bars and pushing them forward. And that motion of pushing the bars forward, right here, boom, that's what really gets the back end to really come up. So I pull back, start pushing the bars forward. And that's what makes the back end really pop. And what's interesting is in that video they talk a little bit about all these techniques that people have taught over the years, like twist your wrists, and he kind of makes fun of this fact, like you can't lift your whole bike by twisting your wrist, certainly not while you're on it. Like that's not even possible. And then they talk about scooping your feet. That's another thing that you don't have to do. Like you'll see my toes point a little bit, but I am not scooping my feet. Like I'm not using the scoop of my feet to pull up the back end. And what's pulling up the back end is all that momentum going up and me pushing the bars forward. See that, how it just pops all of a sudden? Boom. That's right when I start to push the bars forward. That little snap right there. Pop. So that's what's going to get the back end of the bike up. It's all that row and anti-row motion that you do. Row, anti-row. Boom. Right? So watch that video. They explain it a lot better. They got a little bit more humor in there and some cool graphics. There you have it. So that's it. That's my new technique. I don't have it perfected totally. watching myself in slow motion, I see some little things I want to improve upon. One of the big ones is I do this pretty big lean forward of my chest, like I bring them almost to the handlebars. And I do need to compress them, but I don't think I need to go that far. I go to a pretty big extreme. Not sure where I got that habit from. It hasn't really affected my performance to do the bunny hop, but I feel like it's wasted energy, and I can probably be more upright with my body when I do it. So that'll probably be something I'm gonna tweak and stuff. So I'm learning as I go here. Granted, I've been riding for many, many years and been bunny hopping for many, many years, but now that I'm actually starting to teach it more and get into the nitty gritty details, I find all these little things like, oh, I should adjust this, I should do that. And you're always going to do that. Like, you're never going to be at this point of perfection where you don't feel like you're always going to need to tweak things to improve. And that's where I'm at today. So I hope you liked this video and the technique I used with the little scrolling. If you did, let me know in the comments, because I will continue to do more instruction this way. I feel like it's a little easier for me to just video myself and then do it this way rather than me standing there with my bike and trying to describe it, although I kind of like doing that too. So maybe I'll mix and match it, really depending on what type of how-to I want to do. So I can't stress enough, make sure you watch that video that I link in the description. They did a really good job explaining this change and this anti-row and row, and explaining all these things that we've been taught for years that we can just now throw in the garbage, and we can just stick to this really simple concept. Even if you're only just getting a little bit off the ground, it's hugely beneficial to your riding. Really appreciate your support from my channel. Please like and subscribe. See ya.